Welcome to the Sooners 360 Recruiting Podcast, a podcast for OU recruiting fans by Sooners 360. Each week we catch you up on the latest in OU recruiting news and provide opinions and evaluations on all things OU football recruiting. I'm Chris Mason, lead recruiting analyst for Sooners 360. This podcast is now sponsored by Sooners 360 on Patreon. To support this podcast, please go to patreon.com/Sooners360817 and subscribe. It's only $2 a month. There's also a free trial option. And that's where I'm posting all of my regular recruiting content. That link will also be in the show notes. Also, this podcast is now part of the Believe podcast family. Every team, every topic, everywhere. And I'm also appearing with Chris Griffin of the Horns Down podcast on Monday nights doing a recruiting Q&A. And on Thursday nights, I'm appearing with Chris Griffin and Jason Watkins of the Hall of Fame podcast. We're doing a Thursday Sooner Intel show discussing what's going on with the OU program. The best way to get access to this content and be reminded of these live stream events is to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And the easiest way to do that is to simply go to youtube.com. In the search box, type in Sooners 360, just all one word, no spaces. You'll get my channel link. And you can go to the channel and then you can click subscribe and then you'll be notified about live streams. And it's also a quick, easy way to get access to replays of those so that you can catch up on the info. So that's all of the intro spiel out of the way. This is episode 156, Coaching Changes Impacting Recruiting. So we usually start with commitment news, or maybe some prediction news or something like that. And that's really not the biggest news in terms of OU recruiting over since the last broadcast. So the first topic is obviously the running back coaching change and Demarco Murray leaving to go to the Chiefs. That was late Wednesday night. And the recruiting impact of it hasn't really been felt yet, but Demarco Murray was an excellent recruiter. The last two guys he just signed, Jonathan Hatton and Dezefin Walker, are getting rave reviews in winter workouts. He was able to sign. He's been able to sign good running backs out of high school since he came to Norman. Really, his first year he wasn't able to get Kamar Wheaton, which doesn't look like much of a loss at this point, due to COVID and some weirdness with Wheaton, and then he rallied the second year with Javante Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk, who injuries kind of derailed both of their impacts. But at the end of their freshman year, it certainly looked like those guys were going to be a powerful 1-2 punch for the Sooners. So, there's obviously some mixed opinions on Demarco, but you can't say that he wasn't a big time. He wasn't recruiting at a high level. He wasn't signing kids. This isn't a case of that his recruiting efforts were weak or he wasn't getting guys who could play. And he's off. And Demarco has obviously established a good future recruiting path at running back, which he leaves for OU for the next running back coach to hopefully be able to leverage and keep. But and he's been involved with running back recruiting. He's been setting up 29 offers. He has a 28 verbal and 2 27 verbals. So it's hard to say that Demarco was not putting in his full energy into recruiting, not pushing the envelope in recruiting. Micah Rhodes, Jonathan Hatton are both top 100 guys. Keldred Ben certainly has the tape of a top 100 type running back. So overall, this is going to reset recruiting to a fairly high level. Someone like Micah Rhodes, for example, Demarco's had basically a 3-year recruiting relationship with him. So it's going to impact recruiting heavily. We'll see how OU can respond. It's hard to know what the full impact will be until Demarco's replacement is actually hired. And we see, 2 to 6 to 8 weeks to kind of see what the fallout of that might be. So let's just talk about the commitments and maybe where I think things are going to head over the next 6 to 8 weeks. So Micah Rhodes, obviously the 2028 running back that OU just got, top 3 running back in the country, borderline 5-star, just a fantastic player from the Houston area. So Rhodes does have the connection with Cortland Guillory, but he was heavily connected with Demarco Murray more so than any other OU coach or scouting team staff member. So he's obviously expressing quite a few emotions on social media about Demarco leaving. I'm imagining Demarco has contacted Micah. I don't know that for certain. And, they've had a conversation about him leaving, him explaining why he's leaving. And I think it lessens the blow in terms of OU being able to re-recruit that Demarco's going to the pros and going to the Chiefs. That's a fairly easy explanation for a high school kid, Patrick Mahomes, Super Bowls. This all kind of adds up, and it's a fairly easy kind of explanation from that standpoint. He's not going to Penn State, Ohio State, or Michigan, or Georgia, or somewhere else to be a college running back coach. That he felt like OU was limited in some way, and he needed to go somewhere else that was a better college. So from that standpoint, in a similar way to Jay Valai when he went to the Bills, and that message also was easy, I think, for recruits to kind of absorb, like, okay, he's going to Josh Allen. He's going to a team that's a Super Bowl contender. So I think from that element, it's a little easier. But I think Micah, since he's a 2028 kid, sometime in the next, 3 to 4 weeks, perhaps, he might reopen up his recruiting. I think OU will try and get him to come to the March 7th Future Freaks event and say, okay, we understand. Why don't you come to the new event? Why don't you come to our big event, meet a lot of the guys we're recruiting as well, and just see how you feel about, reconnecting with us, with our hopefully our new running back coach. Then the 2027 verbal commencements, Jackson Stokes, the California running back, he's heavily connected to Stacy Ford. So presuming Stacy doesn't go anywhere, because that would be a big blow, I think Jackson Stokes will sit back and see who OU hires and see the connection that they make and what kind of rapport they can build before decommitting. Keldred Bend, the running back from Montgomery, Texas, is a little bit of a different case, and there's a big variable at play here that I think makes a decommitment a distinct possibility. And it's the fact that Keldred Bend's recruiting has blown up since his OU offer. He's got offers from Texas and Oregon, 2 places that are pushing hard with big-time running back coaches and definite success with running backs lately. Obviously, Texas will can easily sell Bijan Robinson. And Oregon's been putting a variety of guys into the pros over the last couple of years and has some very productive running backs. So it'll be tough. I think Ben will, in light of Demarco leaving, will probably end up taking some visits. I know you get him back on campus for the Future Freaks event. I think they're probably going to target that with him as well and with Jackson Stokes. But we'll see how that's going out. But I think depending upon how quickly OU hires somebody and where that fits into the big picture with Ben, there's a good chance that I think he might open up his recruiting, or he's committed, but he's definitely taking unofficial visits elsewhere. So it's a very weak commitment at that point. So I've been asked, I did 2 live streams this week. I was kind of discussing who might be Demarco's replacement. The name that seems to make the most sense, now OU, we'll see which way OU goes, because I'm about to talk about the CB coaching change, and OU kind of went a direction no one was predicting or thought OU might head in with the hire of LaMar Morgan. The name that seemed to make the most sense is Deshaun Foster. Several sites, both Sooner Scoop and OU Insider, have indicated that Deshaun was talking about a role with OU prior to this. And Deshaun Foster, while he was not successful as the UCLA coach, and part of that probably was the messy setup and how he got the job and UCLA's overall problems committing to football, and Foster really being just put in a bad situation, maybe probably not fundamentally ready for it. Prior to that, he was the running back coach at UCLA and very successful. Their running game under Chip Kelly was excellent. And for just an example of a guy that Deshaun Foster coached that's having pro success that he could certainly leverage in his recruiting pitch is Zach Charbonnet with the Seahawks. He was hurt, and that's why you didn't see him in the playoff run. But he was a transfer from Michigan, hadn't really done anything during his time at Michigan, came to UCLA and had a big couple of seasons and has been a very, very effective pro running back for the Seahawks. So that's just an example of somebody that Deshaun Foster has worked with. He was a big-time big-time running back himself in college. He was an excellent pro, got derailed by injuries, but before that, he was flashing a big-time game. So he's got a lot of the similar sort of gravitas kind of touch points that Demarco had. He's also been an extensive running back coach and, has paid his dues there. So we'll see where OU goes, but he has obviously connections with Stacey Ford with their time at UCLA, which probably was why OU was looking at him as an analyst potentially. So I think that would make a lot of sense, but OU could go in a variety of ways. There's a lot of talent and in the running back coaching world. Another name people have thrown around is Tashard Choice, who has a number of connection points with the Sooners and college running backs. He's now with the pros. So does he want to come back? It's hard to tell. One thing that OU can sell is that with the scouting recruiting staff that they have, the front office that Jim Nagy has established is OU is reducing the recruiting load from their assistants. It's not going to be the same as it was 3 years ago. So we'll see if that is something Tashard's interested in. And there's other names out there. There's a variety of names. But at this point, it's hard to know which way Brent will go because, as we'll talk about in a minute, in LaMar Morgan, he sort of went in a direction that nobody was really kind of predicting. So that's where it is. Obviously, Demarco did a good job recruiting. He was a very good recruiter. And he has 3 verbals, which OU, I think 2 of them OU will struggle to hold on to. So that's a pretty big recruiting impact if you have to reset the room and find a different running back for 27. Finding a different running back for 28 is that's a longer range project. You can obviously recover there, but Micah Rhodes was an extremely talented player. So if you lose a running back of his quality, that's a big blow. So the coaching change at cornerback. So OU hired LaMar Morgan, who was on nobody's hot boards. And that's not really a criticism there. It's just it just shows the talent and depth of coaching in the college game that it's hard to know all the names you should be considering. He was part of the staff at Michigan for 24-25. He's been elsewhere. He was in Louisiana coaching. He was his defensive coordinator. Passing game defensive coordinator at Michigan. And he's also been an actual defensive coordinator at a lower level of college football, which gives OU now basically Brandon Hall, Nate Dreiling, and now LaMar Morgan, who all have DC experience, which is great to have on that side of the ball with Brent. And you also got Godwin, the Clemson former DC as an analyst, being the sort of the cheetah coach for OU as well. So you've got that's another experienced DC brain in the room. So that's a lot of DC brain power. It's a good addition. He's an excellent recruiter. His 25 recruiting class featured 3 highly rated cornerbacks. So he's been able to recruit very well there. It looks like from the early feedback that perhaps one reason why LaMar was attractive is that Michigan and OU's offer lists at cornerback and at DB in general map over significantly. So a lot of the guys that OU is recruiting for 2027, Michigan had offered, and Morgan trying to build relationships with them. So he's not a new name to really anybody on OU's take board or offer board. He may not have connections with Mikel McCrary or Michael Davis, so he may have to build some relationships there. But the guys that OU was other recruiting other guys at OU is recruiting, he has connections with, especially out in California. There was a report from Juju Johnson who said that he's known Morgan and they've had a recruiting relationship for over a year. There was an update put out from Miles Baker, a safety from Chatsworth, California, Sierra Canyon, another powerhouse out in California. He's a really good-looking safety on film, 6'2", 190. And he and Morgan had a very close relationship. From Michigan was making a big push for him. And if OU makes a push, I think Morgan probably can build that relationship and get him very interested in OU, which would be another interesting safety prospect to add to the board. I imagine he probably knows Dante Wright, the cornerback I'm going to talk about in a bit. And he probably knows players, and and he's already contacted, according to Brandon Drum from OU Insider, he's already contacted Gabriel Osborne and is working on that. And again, OU's going to try and, just like at running back, OU's going to try and get all of their top targets in for the March 7th Future Freaks event, where they can meet LaMar in person. And LaMar is in Norman, so he's now communicating with recruits, and he can do that. And the nice thing is, no other program can, be in home with or at the school for any recruits. It's a dead period. So anybody trying to take advantage of this window from OU, all they can really do is social media and electronic, phone conversations, emails, text messages, all of those things. But Morgan can do that as well. So there's no advantage. No advantage is really lost during the hiring period, where other teams were able to basically, realize that OU didn't have a DB coach and fly out and try and, leverage that to weaken OU's recruiting status. So again, he's got a good resume. He's got, from a coaching standpoint, he looks like he's an excellent recruiter. This looks like an excellent hire in terms of a replacement for Jay Valai. Checks a lot of the same boxes that Jay Valai was checking in terms of that. So those are the big coaching changes. The LaMar Gordon hire caught everybody kind of flat-footed, but he looks to be an excellent coach. This looks like an excellent hire. I hope OU is as aggressive in hiring a name that has got the same kind of coaching experience and recruiting experience that they did with LaMar Morgan. We'll see how that shakes out. So I mentioned Dante Wright. He's the other cornerback at Long Beach Poly, teammate of Juju Johnson. He's 6'1", 170. And Juju Johnson's like a top 50 guy, and Dante Wright's like a top 30 guy. So he's currently verbally committed to Georgia, but OU's making a push. It's been referenced by Chad Simmons and several other national recruiting types. I'd anticipate Dante being in Norman for March 7th if OU can coordinate it. And OU could make a big push there from that standpoint, and he would be a huge pickup. And if OU could get two cornerbacks from Long Beach Poly, that would be a significant move from their part. So we'll see what happens there. And, it's just proving that OU's going to they're making a move in California this year. Stacey Ford would allow that. Again, LaMar Morgan, I think probably Michigan always recruited California heavily. So I think LaMar Morgan can jump right in with the California kids. That makes a lot of sense to me. So we'll see where OU goes with Dante Wright. The other California player where OU seems to be making some headway is a guy who just looks great on film. It's Quinton Hale, the wide receiver from California, 6'3", 185, 190. Top 50 guy, depending upon who's doing the rankings, and just an excellent looking wide receiver. And USC had been the presumed favorite, and Alabama seemed to be the backup team. I know OU's always kind of been lurking in the background. Well, OU's made a big push here. It looks like OU has moved ahead of Alabama and is pushing Southern Cal in this recruiting battle. And I expect Quinton Hale is going to be in Norman on March 7th, and OU's going to heavily push their relationships and push for Quinton Hale. He's a bigger receiver, which with DeMar DeZern, who is just a unreal smaller guy with elite speed moves. I mean, the comparisons to Dede Westbrook or Hollywood Brown are just out there and obvious. So if you could team him with a California guy who's a little bigger receiver, that pair will hunt. That will hunt in the SEC. So it'll be interesting to see if OU's able to maintain this momentum and forestall a USC commitment, or take this into the summer into official visits. And this is the kind of kid that you continue to recruit. You take this battle for this as deep as you need it, because he's that kind of special kid. So it'll be interesting to see if he makes it to March 7th. I think that's a great sign for the Sooners. I'm not sure he was able to come to a game last fall. So getting him into Norman, maybe getting him in for a spring game as well. Just as an off-ramp, OU has a spring game, and it'll be a real spring game, April 18th. It's hard to discount how big a recruiting tool that can be for OU, to get kids back on campus, see the Sooners playing, see the big crowd for a spring game. Because I think with the big season OU just had and the big season coming up, and now that it's a spring game again after the mess of whatever the Crimson Combine nonsense was last year, I think you'll see a bigger crowd for the spring game, a big crowd. So, that's a big recruiting tool for the Sooners. And maybe you get players like Dante Wright and Quentin Hale back, a month later after the Future Freaks event for the spring game. Like this is their spring game. Get a feel for the passion of our fan base, how big football is in Norman, as opposed to how ignored football is in LA. USC is ignored in LA because of the Chargers and Rams. So we'll see if OU is able to put all those pieces together. But I would imagine you'll be seeing OU pushing invites and coordinating visits again from their top targets for the spring game, especially bringing in the in-state kids. And as the verbals from you're going to see guys like Cooper Hackett and Caden Penny at all these events recruiting. That's the advantage of in-state, 2 in-state 5 stars, basically, that you can get them to your big time events, and the players know, high school kids know these guys. They're 5 stars. They see them on the websites. They know who they are. So there's 2 predictions that have been coming in lately. This is not going to be any surprise to you guys from previous podcasts, but I'm just going to reiterate it. Jamison Roberts should be on campus for March 7th for the Future Freaks event. We're starting to see national guys predicting Jamison Roberts to OU. He's had a good was at a combine event a couple of weeks ago, I think 2 weekends ago, where several national guys were there, and they were all basically indicating we think OU has a big lead. And that's what my sources have indicated as well, that OU feels very confident about their recruiting chase of Jamison Roberts. There's 0 mention of Peyton Houston at this point. He doesn't look like he's leaving LSU, and OU does not seem to be pushing that at all. They think Roberts is the guy they want, and Roberts is the guy that they think has the kind of high ceiling that they'd like to develop. I mean, he's a big kid, big arm, very mobile. You watch his junior year film, especially the playoff run, game over game. He's just getting better and better, making big plays. And really pushing his high school team, Saraland, Alabama, through the playoffs. So I think Jamison Roberts being one of the next commitments for OU is probably a good bet. Now I'll go to a name of someone I think could beat Roberts to the punch. And that is, again, a name you guys, this is going to be a big surprise to you guys, but we're seeing more and more predictions for OU to land Zane Rowe, the Denton Guyer defensive lineman that was a former OU commit and seems to be reconnecting with Miguel Chavis and Todd Bates. And Zane's 6'5", 270 already. The OU coaches think he will easily be 290 plus. So I think defensive tackle, 3-tech is probably his future. And he could be a disruptive, aggressive, mobile, explosive force on the inside. So his potential moving to that could be much higher than his potential at defensive end. So OU's has done a fantastic job recruiting him, never really being, when he decommitted, it was, OU was having a bad season. This was last December of 24. That's sort of when he decommitted, I think. And OU looked a little bit disheveled because of the bad season. Obviously, last year's season changed all that momentum. Miguel Chavis has been a constant presence. They click. He's buddies with guys like Crew Jones, the OU verbal defensive end. That doesn't hurt. So I think this is another top 100 type kid that OU will add to their defensive line group. That's a defensive line group with Crew Jones, top 100 player, Elijah Harmon, top 200, who could easily move into the 150, 100 area when he's healthy. Devin Robinson, who's just a classic nose guard, underappreciated guy, but will be 6'1", 310, 315, 320, with some burst. So just a run-stopping nose guard. And then you could add Zane Rowe to that. That's a pretty powerful D-line class group with three guys who are 4 stars with top 100 type potential. That you don't get much better than that. So I look for Zane Rowe to maybe be the next guy to commit to the Sooners. Wouldn't surprise me if we saw Hayes Forsett post a pony emoji, and then in a couple of days later, we saw something from Zane Rowe in the latter half of this month. Or maybe he waits for the March 7th event. OU, maybe he waits for that to make a splash for that event. So you've got to get you get some hype around the event, around other players, seeing him commit, going public. That possibly could be in the works. I don't know that's the plan, but the longer he waits, the more suspicious I get about that as a possibility. So that's a quick recruiting update for you guys. There won't be a recruiting podcast next week. I'm taking some time off to do some other things, but there will be one the following week. Hopefully, we'll have a running back coach by that time. Hopefully, we'll have some news from the running back verbals, how they feel about that. We'll have more information about March 7th. Maybe we have a commitment, maybe we don't. But we'll have some more news about what's going on with some other recruiting strategies of where OU might go with some in-state guys. I'll also talk about the fact that it looks like OU's slipping. Let some news filter through and see, get some more. Hopefully, we'll have some more news from prospects talking about LaMar Morgan as well. So we'll be back the week after next. I will do a live stream Q&A on Monday. So if you're jonesing for recruiting information, please join that live stream and ask some questions. Thanks for listening, everybody. Please make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your audio platform of choice. And if you're on YouTube, please subscribe. That's how the YouTube algorithm works and gets me exposure to more Sooner fans who are looking for recruiting information and don't know about me. So one last appeal, please visit patreon.com/Sooners360817 to subscribe for more recruiting content. The Sooners 360 on Patreon directly helps this channel. It keeps the podcast free. So if you enjoyed this podcast and want to continue listening to it, please give us a try on Patreon. Like I said, there's a free option, and then you can migrate to paying $2 a month to get all of my recruiting content on the site. So thanks, everyone, and we'll be back probably February 25th, something like that, probably that Wednesday. We'll be back. So thanks.